Hey, sports fans, Greg Medford from Medford Knife, MKT USA, and ASK Knives. It is on. I thought today I would talk a little bit about knives, and then I'll let you know when the knife component of our discussion ends today, and then we'll jump over to, I guess we'll jump over to some politics and stuff because I got some funny stuff to talk about. I don't know how funny it is. It's kind of more tragic, but enough with the politics. I want to talk knives with you. So, I was sitting at, I don't know, the bar some years ago in Germany. I was kind of talked about this in this Irish pub with a couple of friends of mine that own another knife company. And we were talking about, they were saying maybe, hey, Greg, let's do a project together. And we talked about some different ideas, and they were in the middle of doing a transaction with their company, a larger transaction. So they weren't ready to take on any new projects at the time. So I basically, we talked about it and brainstormed a little bit. I came up with kind of a concept, and then we brainstormed a little bit on actually doing the concept. And then nothing ever happened. They were busy doing their thing. And I said, well, listen, I said, do you guys want in on this, or am I going to proceed? I'm going to do this. And they said, no, you go ahead. And then it kind of took on a life of its own as I took over the project all for my lonesome. Now, that was maybe 4, maybe 5 years ago. And I've had a bunch of challenges getting this product ready to launch. So let me talk about some of those. And then I want to talk with you guys. I'm going to show you the product. And this is kind of like Rev 10. And then I have about 30 changes to what you're going to see that are really subtle, that wouldn't really come off on camera. There's a lot to these types of knives that are very feel-oriented. And, aerospace is one thing. You kind of make to spec, and they build things to fit a certain way with tolerances. Making knives is building to feel. So you don't just make stuff fit together. You got to make it fit together and feel right. And build to feel is a different animal. So my original company, Medford Knife and Tool, is very much a talent of assembly style of company. It's I would say the main asset we bring to the table as a company is our skill crafting the pieces together. Even though we make them all in-house, when you stack all the little tiny variants, tolerance variants, it ends up being stuff that you have to kind of whittle away by hand. And it's a tall order, and it's a high craftsman, high talent skill. It is not like doing basic assembly. It is really, really sophisticated assembly. And as a company, it's kind of a boulder you can't ever push over the top of the hill. It is always going to be the crux of our challenge, making things that kind of fit perfectly. And we get it mostly right. We get it overwhelmingly right, but we have stuff slip through. We have some, occasionally you'll have a piece of titanium that, titanium's a funny metal. It's got its own personality, and one sheet can act one way, one sheet can act another way. The microscopic granular structure of it, the grain can make it act funny. So it's got a lot of personality to it, and because of that, it creates some challenges. And I just figured as a company, I'll never be able to kind of scale up that handmade personality because it's just so laborious. It takes so long to craft together a knife the first time that's got the level of fit that I want. And struggling for my level of fit means you have a high degree of failure getting there, because it's so stringent. And I feel a lot of guys' knives, there are a lot of guys make fantastic knives, but they have a different expectation of the way the mechanism feels. And I have this little expectation of mine that the ancient communication between the edged implement and the hand is uninterrupted with flex or play or wiggle. And that's pretty hard to come by in the knife world. And some guys do it kind of at the jewelry level until you stress the tool a little bit and it immediately has play. And so when guys are at that jewelry perfectionistic level, I always say, well, it's great, but my guys with these tumbled finishes and these exteriors that are more, kind of a working exterior. These guys are working my tools. Now they're all the guys who collect my stuff. No doubt about it, but no question about it. But the vast majority of knives that go out don't have all that customization. They have very, very working tool type finishes to them, and therefore they get used a lot. So, uh, that being said, I can't just have knives that function really well when they're in the cabinet, or function really well in and out of a safe, or function really well in a pair of slacks. I've got to have tools that function really well after guys are really banging around and beating on them. So it's a tightrope as a company. We walk all the time. You make a knife like, the Praetorian. You make a knife like the Marauder. You make a knife like the Theseus. You make a knife like the USMC Fighter Flipper. These are big, stout tools, and there are expectations on them. And you get a fan base of people who have these expectations of your product. And then you go and make the Slim MIDI. And you go and make all of these 1/8-inch thick, thinner knives. And the challenge is chasing these tight tolerances and chasing these kind of zero play expectations that I have. The challenge is these slider tools, these thinner tools, they've got play in them. Not play. They've got flex in them that you don't have in the heavier materials. So that creates a whole nother dynamic. So, we as a company, as we've grown and brought more diversification into the company, you get these anomalies that happen when you bring your style that works with really stiff 3/16 handles, or really stiff, even large 1/8-inch material, and you bring that down to very small, slim material with slim blades, and you have some flex in the whole system that wasn't there before, and that changes the nature of your knife making. We've got a new mechanism we're working on called the lever over center lock. It's called LOC squared. It's a pretty cool product I originally designed for SOG knives, I don't know, about 8 years ago. And then I decided I didn't want to give it away. So I've been kind of saving it for a knife of my own. And I have a really cool knife with that. So we're going to work on that this year. That's a whole new locking mechanism that the world's never seen before. That's just a little idea on my part. We'll see if I can make it work. So back to the new knife I want to talk about with you guys today, and ASK Knives. So ASK Knives was this concept out of a conversation with my friends, and we were talking about the Victorinox's Swiss Army knife product. And we were talking about what a giant product segment it is, and how there's really nobody competing in that space, and how we were all kind of saying, well, that's a space we'd like to compete in. Well, people say stuff all the time. They, I'm going to invent this and tell my boss to take his job and shove it. People have all kinds of dreams and hopes and aspirations. And I have a tendency to kind of come up with an idea and I just kind of go for it. And I almost do it intentionally being a little ignorant, because if you know too much, sometimes you get paralyzed and you stop looking. There are many things that I look back on the past, and I'm sure you guys are the same way, where you've done it. And after the fact said, man, if I knew what I know now, I might not have actually done that. Man, I had no idea what a job that was going to be. And this is one of those cases where I said, you know what? I'm just going to plunge into this with some bliss, have some fun, and make this new product. And if it works out, cool. And if it doesn't, it's all right. But I'm not going to overanalyze it, because if I do, I'll get analysis paralysis and I won't make the move. So I looked at their products very, very briefly, and I had kind of cursory exposure over the years, with Swiss Army knife. I mean, I think everybody who has a knife has a Swiss Army knife. And I made the decision that, I didn't want to look too much at their stuff, because I didn't want to be too informed by it. I wanted to come up with my own concept on a really slick implement for the pocket that's a little more manly, maybe a little more masculine, maybe a little more American. It's a little more of a tool. It's a little less of a cuckoo clock. And my thinking is, guys, all the time I've been out on adventures, they say, oh man, I wish I had my Swiss Army knife with me. Oh man, I wish I had this with me. Oh, I wish. Well, I'm like, where is it? It weighs too much. I didn't want to carry it. It's too bulky. No, it's too wide. It bounced around in my pocket. I don't like it. And they end up having a single tool, or they have a multi-tool back in their glove box, and we're 18 miles from where we parked. So I used to lead some adventures around the Southwest here, and I've had this conversation so many times with people, and you end up improvising with a pocket knife. What I wanted to do was come up with a really simple tool. So I'm telling you guys some of the zeitgeist behind this, and then I'm going to show it to you. And it's really getting close to being done. And it's at the point now where I can show you on video because it essentially is done for all intents and purposes. I've got about, like I said, my gig list on this knife right now has about 30 line items that we're addressing. There are nuances of engineering, there are nuances of feel, there are nuances of fit, but the product is getting pretty close to done. And at some point, you gotta. Amy's dad said gave me a great phrase years ago talking about manufacturing. He says, sometimes you got to shoot the engineers and go into production. It's time to shoot the engineers and go into production. And at some point, me and our engineer, you have to shoot us like enough already. Let's just make the damn thing. So we're getting close. We've got, like I said, about 30 little adjustments we're going to make because I'm competing against a company that has 130 years in the marketplace. I'm competing against a company that's probably collectively had millions of man hours building and engineering and designing before actually going into production on many things. And I've got to show up at the marketplace with a product that is cool, it's functional, it's badass, and it defines itself. It's got to be a different kind of creature. So I think we've done that. Now, the product I'm going to show you today, it's got linen micarta handles on it. Linen micarta is something that we could shape and give you a really good view of the product. We could get a really good feel of it and weight of it before our injection molded parts are done. Now, when you eventually are able to order this knife from the ASK website, you're going to see the primary color for the entire product line is Grabber Orange. We're using Grabber Orange, which is one of the American car manufacturers' paint colors. We're using that and we're calling it that because we want to be a great American knife maker that has a knife in everyone's pocket. We're using orange because this is a style of knife that's not necessarily a tactical knife like so many knives I've made over the years. And we wanted to come out. This is a knife where you're camping. It's night times. It's low light conditions. It's an emergency. It's in your trunk where you'll have hardly any lighting and you're trying to jury rig something so you can get back moving again. You're out camping in low light and you don't want to leave your knife behind. So we figure there's almost no time in the real world where your knife being tactically invisible is important. It is almost always the case. We just want to be able to see the damn thing and not leave it behind as we're picking up our trash or it's the end of a hunt. You've done a little cleanup and you had to pull your knife out to do a little something with, and you lay it down and keep working. I have a tendency of doing that. You leave your knife behind. We want it bright orange. We want it visible. So it's got a really cool high-vis orange component to it. You can, of course, get a lot of other colors. The only color we don't make the knife in at this point is red. Instead of being a pure oval, it's a tombstone shape. I'll show you that in a minute. It'll originally, most of the knives will be available in orange, and then we are going to make an OD green version of the knife, a Corsair blue version, which is the same color as the F4 Corsair from World War II. We're doing a black version. We're doing a white golfer's version. We're doing a ladies version that's in pink and one that's in bright yellow. So these are all going to be beautiful, wet look, injection molded handles, handle covers, handle scales. Those parts are being made in Scottsdale, Arizona. What's cool about that, the mold, instead of going with a partial Asian or Chinese made mold, we're having the mold handmade here in Arizona. They're going to be molded here in Scottsdale. We're actually going to show you guys that process happening. But it's a pretty big process building the mold, building the parent mold, the insert mold, and getting the parts sorted out till they're a usable part. Injection molding is a really cool process, and I learned a ton about it in this whole adventure. The other thing we're having made here in Arizona is our titanium liner and insert pieces in the knife. They're being made of 6AL4V titanium. They're going to be made by Ryco Metal Stamping here in Arizona. All of the tools and blades and other components will be made here in our shop. We have precision pins that go throughout the knife on the inside that you can't see, part of the stop and assembly. Those are being made in the U.S. and ground in the U.S. The pivot screws, we're going to source those partially in America, partially in Taiwan, and partially in Italy and South Korea. So we're really trying to do a good global neighbor on some of the hardware pieces to make this thing tenable in the first place. We're coming at the market with a different kind of product. So you can open this thing up, you can change all the parts around and make it completely your own way. The ones I'm going to show you today, these are linen micarta. And why don't we get to it? Let me slip over to camera 2 here. I'm going to get in hand country so I can show you one of these knives. So the form factor on it, you can see it's not just round. It's got a tombstone shape up on the top edges of it, on the end, both ends of it. If I flip it around, so it looks like kind of like a tombstone from the 1700s. I was really going for Americana with this. This thing screams Americana. It's got a Betsy Ross flag at one end, and it says Made in USA. And Made in USA is not assembled in USA from globally sourced components or anything like that. It is a Made in USA knife. Everything about it is very Made in USA. The only thing, I wanted to bring titanium hardware to the table, and the cost of the knife would be $40 higher than it is if I did that locally. And quite frankly, the aerospace companies that would make this Swiss hardware don't want to make this stuff for me. So I've got a few different companies around the world going to make it for me. I'm going to keep my supply chain very flexible with this. And it is meant to be taken apart and swapped around. Give you a look at the top now. You can see all the material is 1/8-inch thick stock. The tools are all 1/8-inch thick. 8-inch thick, and we're going to be building this knife and specializing all the flat tools initially. There's some slight changes that you'll see. The back side of the knife, you're going to see here, and let me get you one that's got the proper flush. I'm going to hold this one up here for you, okay, you guys? So this is the first side. The back side of the knife, and then the front side has got large, and those will end up being I believe they're 25 Torx drive heads, and then in the final product you won't see any spaces around them, so they're pretty smooth. They're very smooth, flush. The whole thing's really meant to be smooth and flush in the pocket. And you'll see our logo and crest. Let me flip it over so you can see the logo and crest. Each handle, each side has got the flag and the logo and crest in it. So the logo, you'll notice, is the shield from my company, Medford Knife and Tool. And then inside of it is a musket and a hammer. And our thing is, 250 years disrupting the world with freedom. American service knife. And the other side has the exact same kind of marking on it. When you open the knife up on the inside of the handles, because it's meant to be taken apart from this from the front side, obviously. When you open the knife up and you look on the inside, it's got the Liberty or Death. It's got the snake on it. It's got 1776. It's got some cool Americana, little hidden Easter eggs on the inside of the handle. The knife is going to come stock as you see it right here. We're going to call this the Classic, and then it'll be a high-vis orange. Let me open it up and show you the blade. So the blade, let's see if I can get this in here all the way. It's a kind of a spear point, drop point blade. Hollow ground, double hollow ground. It's going to get a little choil there. I haven't put that fully in yet. I haven't been working on the tool refinement because I've been working on the mechanism refinement of the whole thing. If you look at the top, the way it joins together around the tombstone, you'll see the surface is all made up really nicely. It's a super cool knife. And it's got great walk and talk for you guys who are slip joint aficionados. The Swiss Army knife has got a round back to it, typical multi-tool. They've got that round back. This has got a really nice half stop. Let me see if I can. I won't show you that without that looking all blurry. Sorry about that, everybody. I'm trying to do this by myself. So there's the knife. And there's the open position. And there's the closed position. And let me, gosh, try and get this camera to focus here a little bit. Maybe that's better. So let me open the blade up. It's got a great snap there, and then it snaps open. And then we've put, I put this little locking cam in here. So when you go to close it, there's a little tiny bit of pre-release. We call it pre-release because it lets you feel when you're working the tool. Should you be doing something where you're pushing in with the tip of the blade and it starts to break like it's gonna close on you. We've got a little bit of pre-release, and then it hits a node, and that node stops it. Come on, camera, get in focus. That's super annoying. I don't know why the camera's not focusing now. I'll show you guys this. Let me see here. Oh, there we go. So if you look inside the knife, you'll see there's a little node that when you go to close it, you know, because I'm a locking knife kind of guy, so I'm making a slip joint knife. I didn't want it to just slip close. I want you to get a little signal and like, oh, it's going to close, and then it hits a stop. So all of the tools have a little pre-release, and then they hit a backstop, and then you got to push them over that cam, and then they all snap to the 50% point, the half stop. And then from the half stop to release, you give it a little push. As soon as it hits about 45 degrees, it'll kind of yank out and snaps close. Now I'm going to put this up near the microphone so that you guys can kind of hear this thing. It's ridiculous. And then let me close it. I don't know. It's just sexy. I don't even have these things oiled yet, and they move really well. So titanium liners on them. They've got 4 different styles of blades. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open them up, and I'm going to let you check them out real quick, all right? So let me get the first one open up here. So this is a drop point. And honestly, I haven't been making these long enough to be really good, like looking fluent with them. You know, you put big fixed blades and big frame lock knives in my hands, and you know, I can move around and it looks like I know what the fuck I'm doing. But with these new ones, I don't have my best I don't know say coordination manipulating them yet. So that's the first one. The second one is, let me open this up so you guys can see it. We've got a waterfall tanto, which is a really cool blade. I think you guys are going to dig this. We've got range finders and glass breakers and M4 bolt scrapers. I want to show you all these. And these tools, you know, we're going to have to find what is like the best. Just bear with me, and I'll show you some knives here, okay? We've got to find out what's the best feel for certain tools, and then you've got to find a way to incorporate it into all these different knives. And you know, how much of your nail do you want to sacrifice? How much when you want a tool of certain stiffness? So let me just open up. I got one more to open up here, and you get them all open, and it's like, halfway point. Put that to halfway. Let me open up the blade. I'll show them all to you in a second. I think you guys are going to dig the shit out of this. These things are so... I'm kind of giddy because this has been a project that's been a while coming for me. And to have this stuff in my hands now and alive is just amazing to me. Let me see if I can move this and go to camera 2 and then show you kind of what I've got going on here. Let me see if this will work. I wish I had my filming assistant here today. So here we go. Let's go to camera 2. And I'm just going to hold them up so that you can kind of see. This is the first model. So the first model, the Classic, it has a spear point blade. And the spear point blade, since it's a waterfall grind, It's thick out at the tip, so when we edge this along here, you're going to see the tip get fatter at the end. And that's not just for looks, guys. That's to give it a really strong tip so that you're less likely to bend or chip the tip. It's got a bottle opener with a through-looking rangefinder on it. I'm not going to get into how this works, but I've been doing it on knives for years, and it's been really effective out to 400 meters. It's got a screwdriver bottle opener, rangefinder, and then a full-on, let me flip the knife around so you can kind of see it. It's got a full-on wood chisel. Now, the wood chisel here is for all those times when you are reaching in with your knife, in your motorcycle, and you're trying to cut off a tube that's on a petcock, or you're trying to reach in and cut something from the end. I've always wanted a razor sharp chisel. All those times you want to skive or get underneath the screw head or get underneath a little thing you're trying to lift up. So I've done a long chisel that'll be razor sharp. It's got a 16th, 8th, and 1/4 inch hex in it for grabbing a bolt. It's got a nail puller and a grabber here that works really well that I've been experimenting with, and I think it's a great little tool. So this is it's a 3-part tool. So better to have 3 in your pocket that you want than have 23 that it's too heavy to carry back in your glove box away from your hike. Better to have what you want in your pocket. We'll go on to the second knife right now. Second knife's called the Gunny. Now that knife I just showed you, the Classic we're calling it. The Classic is going to be available in grabber orange only. Okay? Go to number 2, the Gunny. This is the Gunny right here. Wait for the camera to focus in there. And the Gunny has got an M4 bolt scraper. It's got a rangefinder bottle opener, and it's got a waterfall Tonto on it. I think I called the other one waterfall spear point. But I'm doing these waterfall grinds because they allow me to put a bunch of metal out on the very tip of the knife. So M4 bolt scraper, for those of you who've seen those before, we've done a really elegant little tool here for working and cleaning your M4, scraping carbon off that bolt face and various parts on your bolt. We've put a Tonto blade on it because a lot of guys, military guys, are going to use their knives more improvisationally, and we wanted to put a little more strength out at the tip. And then obviously a rangefinder on it. This one is called the Gunny. This will be available in olive green for obvious reasons. Let's go to our next knife. The next one's called the Navigator. So the Navigator has got a Viking-style blade on it. For those of you, I forget what the technical term for it is, but I always saw it on Viking knives, and I thought it was cool. So I wanted to put one on here. I like it because it's got a little worn cliff to it, but it's got a little more strength because it's got a solid back all the way down instead of kind of disappearing. I know guys have a lot of different ways of doing this. Sheep's foot, worn cliff, this. They're all really in the same family of knives. It's got a nice straight utility cutting edge, and a lovely blade, and of course hollow ground on both sides, so it's not just a chisel ground knife. And then for the primary defining tool of the knife, it's got 3/16 and 1/4 inch 3/8 and 1/4 inch hex tool, and it's got a Zeus fastener quarter turn on it for boat panels and aircraft panels. So every airplane, general aviation airplane that I've ever flown has got Zeus fasteners that use quarter turns. And I've always used one of these blades, especially when I was flying warbirds a lot. So I wanted to make one. This comes in Baja Blue, or it's Baja Blue, but it's actually called Corsair Blue. And it's the color of the F4 Corsair from World War II. The last of the 4 knife series is our, we haven't come up with a technical name for this one yet, so it's either the Outdoorsman or the Adventurer. We've got to find some cool name for it that makes sense, but isn't taken by 9 other knife companies on planet Earth. Super cool knife. It'll be available in grabber orange only. It's got a sewing awl on it. It's got a worn cliff blade and a bottle opener. And you'll notice the Classic has got a round lanyard ring for putting a little spring ring on, and you can upgrade to a breaker on any one of these models. Show you the breaker versus the see if we can get a close-up that works here. So you see there's a breaker with sharp facets on it, and then there's a round spring loop. Now, I'll just show you a little bit about the knives. Let's look down inside this one here, okay? See if the camera will do its job. But if you look down inside here, all of the springs and all of the tools are made of S35VN. The liners are made of 6AL4V titanium. The pins are 416 stainless steel. The pivot hardware on the outside, which you're not used to seeing on this style of knife, you guys are used to a clean, uninterrupted surface. But the pieces of hardware on the outside, they're pivotal to the concept. No, you need to be able to access them so you can take the knife apart and swap it around. The key to this knife is modular, the modular concept. So if you order the Classic, which is right here, if you order the Classic, you can put any one of these blades, they'll all fit. You can put any one of the defining tools, they'll all fit. You can go with 2 tools, no bottle opener. It really just kind of depends. It's really set up for you to make it however you want. So as you think about the knife, as you think about what knife should I get out there, I have some competition from another company that has every goddamn tool on earth. And they make them all up, and they put them all in these very cool little products, and you don't get to actually set them up the way you want. And the nice thing about my concept and what I'm bringing to the table is customization. The same way you might take your 1911 and you've customized it, or you take your Glock and you customize it, and there are all these aftermarket companies and aftermarket parts and aftermarket things you can put on to personalize it and make it your way, the way you want, the way you like. You're going to be able to do that with your little everyday carry pocket tool. And I want it to be a knife you want to carry all the time. So instead of being made out of generic steels, it's made out of premium American tool steel for making knives. S35, we're probably going to do an S45VN version coming up. I'm putting tools on that thematically relate to what the guys do with the tools that buy stuff in America. Do I want to put scissors on it? Yes. So we're going to be looking at putting scissors and pliers on over the next coming couple of years. I got to tell you, bringing scissors on is a big, complex, very sophisticated process. And there's nobody in the United States doing it, and we're going to do it. But the machine costs $1 million, and I wanted to launch the product and get it going and get it to kind of fund itself. We want, as I move forward, to be able to take my scissor design, and you can buy the scissor and put it in your knife. If you got to have the scissor, you can do a blade and a scissor. You can do 2 blades. You can do a long blade and a short blade. You could do a scissor, a screwdriver, and a blade. You can mix and match any way you like. And you'll see on our new website, you'll see all the new tools you can get currently. You'll see the coming tools, and you'll see the plans for our expansion. Just like anything else. You know, they've had 130 years to come up with a bunch of ideas and cram too many things into a space that most people don't actually carry. And what we want to do is we want to offer personal flexibility to the end to be able to carry exactly what you think you'd want and might be able to use the most. And you can buy any model of the knife. You can put any different scale on it you want, any different color you want. You want to put titanium scales on it, you can do that. You want to put copper, you can do that. You want them hand sculpted, you'll be able to do that and get people to do that. We're going to sell customizing kits, so you can buy a set of handles and send them off to your favorite pimper, and he can do his thing. Or you can try your hand at pimping them yourself. You want to get out a file and some sandpaper and do a grip on your knife, we're going to sell you a kit for that. You want to buy any one of the tools. Oh, I like this, but I only like Warncliffe blades. But I like this setup. You can just buy the blade from us. You'll be able to buy anything and put any one of the tools we make in any position and customize it for you. So that's the ASK knife, and that's kind of where we're at with it right now. We'll be offering more blade types, more tool types, and more complex tools as time goes by. I did everything in 1/8-inch scales because I can fit everything that I want to grow into an 1/8-inch slot, and I can fit some things at half that thickness into that slot. So it offers me this unbelievable interchangeability on a few tools, which is what I want. Will we do a big thick one someday? I know I've had guys asking me about that. I'm sure we're going to do some Franken version of it just for fun, but it's not something I want to be in the business of. I want to make tools that guys actually carry. Now, people want to know price on this knife. I'm going to tell you right now my goal, and I am moving heaven and earth to bring this thing in at retail at $190. Made in the U.S. almost exclusively, with the exception of one small part. And I think that price point's going to bring a lot of people to the table, and I hope you guys like that. It is a ton of work putting this together. The amount of engineering, it's hard to conceive how much work goes into it. But Jason's done a great job here. My whole team's done a great job supporting me in this mad project. I hope you guys dig the project. I've got a bunch of iterations of this to work my way through to get to my final part where I can drop my injection molded scales onto it. I've got this really cool final product that has a different level of polish and engineering than I've kind of done in the past. It's much more complex. Okay, so that's the end of our knife segment this happy Monday. I'm going to jump into next, and that's ASK Knives, American Service Knife. Our website is not up and operational yet, but I'm giving you guys, your MK Tooligans, I'm giving you guys a little preview and a little explanation of what I've been up to. I was just told that they lost in July 3 times as many people to shootings as they did to COVID-19. I was just told they lost 3 times as many people to shootings in Washington, D.C. as they did to COVID-19 in July. That should be in the news. I found out last week in the state of Arizona, over 78,000 more ballots, mail-in ballots, were returned and counted. Not returned. There were 78,000 more mail-in ballots counted than were sent out. The election in Arizona was supposedly decided by 10,000 and change votes. And there is one determinative error in the amount of ballots sent in versus the amount of ballots sent out. No, the amount of ballots counted than were sent out. They apparently sent out some number, and they got that number plus 78,000 more mail-in ballots counted. Now, how does that happen? Well, I guess let's explore a couple possibilities. It's just one error. That's not deaths. That's not fraud. That's not anything else. That's nothing else. Just one thing that has been reported in the news. It's been reported on, I believe, Newsmax. It has been reported on Epic Times. I've seen it in a few other news stories. I want to repeat this. In the 2020 presidential election, there were 78,000 more mail-in ballots counted than were sent out. That means if they sent out 400,000 of them, that would tell you a bunch of people are going to forget to mail them in, get them lost, mail them wrong, not put postage, screw it up, forget to do it, took a vacation that week and they forgot. They have, if it was, let's just say the number was 400,000 or 200,000, whatever the number was, there were 478,000 counted in the election. How is that possible? Possibility number one. That's just in our county. That's just in Maricopa County. Like, guys are asking me all the time, hey, Greg, you're in Arizona. What's going on with that recount out there? Either they took boxes of ballots, mail-in ballots that had been counted and pulled them out of the machine, set them on a table, and ran them through the machine again 78,000 times. Or somebody took blanks and photocopied their selections onto a bunch of them 78,000 times. Now, we know actually that both things happened here in Arizona. We know both things happened. We know that blank mail-in ballots with no folds were photocopied onto. We know that. That's been reported. It's in the public record. What we don't know is how many. But we do know, which has been reported, that 78,000 more mail-in ballots were counted than were actually sent out to voters. Unbelievable. Now, there are numerous other, I hear there are 5 major errors in Maricopa County. And you don't hear about it on the news anywhere. So my question to all of you is, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, it has nothing to do with that. Whether you like Trump or hate Trump, it has nothing to do with that. I want to know why everyone is so against making sure the election was clean and square. Why are so many people fighting that? Why is the news obfuscating it? Why is the news failing to report it? Why is it bad to want to verify something that happened that nobody expected to happen, that dumbfounded everyone, that defies just observational reality? You know, when you can't fill up a school gymnasium and the other guy is filling up stadiums, baseball stadiums, he's filling up giant auditoriums nationwide. There are spontaneous gatherings, 100-mile car chains. Not even organized. No politician in U.S. history has been able to garner that kind of fervor. When you see that going on everywhere, and then you see 12 people standing in hula hoops in a stadium in Phoenix, Arizona, with 12 people or 18 people watching a Biden campaign rally, it defies logic. The guy got more votes than Barack Obama. Of course, the left says, well, that's because everyone hated Trump so much. Well, that's a possibility. It's just, it doesn't look that way. So I don't understand why so many people are so against just doing a big, clean, open audit. Now, what do we do about it? And I guess that's my question to you guys. What do we do? What do you do when half the people believe their vote doesn't matter anymore because an election was stolen and because their vote doesn't matter and they don't come to elections anymore? What happens to our country? I'm not saying that happened, everybody. I'm just saying, what if half the people in the country actually think that? Half of America are conspiracy theorist nut jobs and think that democracy doesn't work anymore. The goal of every politician should be to reinstill trust. The way you do that? Sunlight. Open the books, open the coffers, open the doors, open the machines, public knowledge. Now that's what's going on with this count in Arizona. And they found big boo-boos. Now, let's say 3 months ago when they started the count, they did the count, and the count was pretty dang close. It was within a percentage point. All those volunteers had kind of shrugged their shoulders and go, well, you know, it's pretty close. Good. I'm going. Guys like me and former President Donald Trump said, I don't care how the count comes down. If I lose, I lose. It's okay, but I want it honest. I'll take a lose. Same with me. Same with most of my conservative friends. We're okay with Trump losing. We're really okay with it. Did I want Trump to lose? No. Was I okay with him losing? Absolutely. Did I want Barack Obama to win a second term? Hell no. Was I okay with him winning? Yes. There was a vote. At least I thought there was. And that's what's going on now. That's the problem. Where does a voting republic go when half of the people, primarily from one political spectrum, all of a sudden believe their vote doesn't matter anymore? And it's not faith-based politics, folks. It's real. It's not anecdotal. There are now millions of examples. There are hundreds of thousands. There are affidavits, sworn affidavits in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, in Arizona, in Michigan. And who's reporting it? Folks, this country works because we, the people, gave up a little of our freedoms to empower a federal government, a federal body, to do things for us we can't quite do for ourselves. The state of Arizona can't whoop up an aircraft carrier and a fleet to be positioned off the coast of China. The state of Arizona can't whoop up a fleet to sit out in the Med in case some problem's there. The state of Arizona can't whoop up an army to go fight a national war. The state of Arizona can't fix trade problems between Connecticut and Florida or Texas and California. So we agreed in a contract called the U.S. Constitution to give up some of our God-given rights, little bits of them, to empower a body in Washington, D.C. to do bidding on our behalf. On our behalf, not on the behalf of China. And the greedy sons of bitches have sold our country off while we've watched. My good friends on the left side of the aisle, my good Democrat friends, have sat back believing the news was true and have had their party and their country stolen out from under them as well, and they didn't even know it happened. Your average rank-and-file Democrat doesn't know that the Democrat politicians in Washington have sold out the country, as of about half the Republicans. They've sold it out. They've broken unions for cheap labor in China to import shit here and put our businesses out of business. That's what happened. It happened while we watched. It started with Bill Clinton, and it happened with every president since. Most favored nation status to China. We've engaged dirty, rotten commies, and what we found out, they have no desire to be a Republican democracy. They have no desire for democracy. They have no desire for freedom. If anything, they've done nothing but tighten the reins of totalitarianism and communism in China since they've received most favored nation status. So now what? Here's the way it works. There's us, and there's this little body called the government that we've given power to. And what they've done is continue to take more and more power. And in the middle, between good and mostly evil, between authoritarian power and the people, in between them is a referee in black and white with a black and white striped jersey on called newspaper. There are reporters in the middle, and they are, so to speak, the referees. They call the shots. They're the instant replay. They say the government did this. The people didn't want it. They say the government did that. The people didn't want it. The press is supposed to be skeptical of the government because of the absolutism and power grab that goes on there. The press is supposed to be acting on the people's behalf. These are our sons and daughters with their fine degrees from Columbia, and NYU, and UCLA, working for these institutions, writing and judging the federal government. Our sons and daughters are supposed to have their gaze protecting their brothers and sisters, daughters and sons, mothers and fathers back in America, not protecting Washington. And they've been bought off too. They've been bought and sold by big business, by big pharma, and by big government. Oh, you want to come to the press conference? Boy, you better play ball. Oh, you want to be invited to the press conference? Boy, you better play ball. You're a rebel rouser. You're a troublemaker. You're not even welcome at the National Press Corps anymore. There's no rebels left in reporting. Do you know what a rebel in reporting is now? Someone who tells the truth no matter what their boss says. That's a rebel. That's supposed to be the definition of a reporter. Reporters now are yes men lackeys. They don't use the infinitive case well. Their grammar's not that great. Their spelling's not awesome. They're mediocre at their craft. And the one thing they're there to do, which is not entertain, they're not doing. They are not telling truth to power. They're not supposed to tell power's perception to us. They're not supposed to sell us on COVID. They're not supposed to sell us on vaccines. They're there to speak truth to power. And to do it in the public square. The newspaper. Their newspaper. Their website. They got dethroned by social media. They got dethroned by people not believing them. They got dethroned by people sitting on the scene reporting and social media. And they made an evil pact. And they're colluding. Why would they do this? You might say. Why? It's a combination of a perfect storm. Reporters are typically left to center. They're liberal arts people. They're not scientists, engineers, mathematicians, and builders. They're chatters. They're chitty chatters. They weren't great at physics class. They were good at English. Most of them, they weren't good at PE and they didn't play sports. They were on the school newspaper. These are not science people, and they report on the science of the day. The thing is, you don't have to be a scientist. You just have to be skeptical. You have to be skeptical. So as Americans, we have to be skeptical because the press, our referee, somebody paid off the referee, and the referee is on the side of power. The referee is supposed to be on the side of the people. And when the people are wrong, the press is supposed to op-ed opinion pieces to offer another perspective, to open the minds of readers. In our representative democracy, the concept is that you're busy doing what you do. You can't be totally informed on everything like a citizen legislator who hangs out and gets informed and reads and hears the nuance. You don't have time to be mom and dad. You don't have time to be business owner. You don't have time to be employed. You don't have time to do all those things and be employed on the nuances of all these topics of the day. So you send a representative whose job it is to represent you and remember where they come from. Get informed and make common sense decisions as a body. And the press is supposed to look with skeptical eyes on the halls of power because power corrupts. Hold press accountable. Why is it there is not a rebel in the press anymore? Why are there no rebels? How has it ended up that being rock and roll cool is fucking conservative? How is that? Can you imagine a New York Times reporter basically saying Trump was right? Can you imagine if they did? They'd be fired. Now, we can all talk about why this is. We can argue with each other. We can wax rhapsodic about what we think the answer is. But the truth is, we've had it too good, too long, and we're soft. We're not hungry. We're not holding our young people accountable. We're not pushing them. We're not forcing them to be hungry. Our hands have gotten soft. Our sternness has become gentle. Our strictness has become lazy. And our hunger has become sated. Our hunger is sated. We're like those people in those automatic chairs that roll around in that animated Wall-E movie. And the Chinese are eating our lunch because they're hungry. Now, they're also dirty, rotten, thieving sons of bitches. Dirty, rotten, commie, copycat, cheat, unoriginal sons of bitches. But they're eating our lunch because if they need a bridge, they'll build it next week. We will do environmental studies for a decade, have 3 people bid on it, and go with the highest bidder and be 4 times over budget. It'll take 15 years to put a bridge in. They'll build it. They'll start building it next week. You can't build a house in this country anymore without an environmental study, an impact study, an approval from some board. That's why they're eating our lunch. We're letting people have say in the progress of human culture who are only concerned about safety, not advancement. And there is a balance to be struck. All right, that's my Monday. I'm looking for people to shout out to me with ideas and solutions. I'm looking for you to write me, greg@medfordknife.com, and tell me what's on your mind. You write something great to me. You give me a solution to a problem, not just a complaint. I will talk about them on the air. I'll even bring you on the air live. I want this little thing as it evolves, our little forum, our little podcast, our little video chats. I want them to be productive. I want, if some lib is sitting in, listening in with their skeptical arrogance and their Birkenstocks on, I want them to listen in and go, wow, these guys actually they're kind of making sense. Because sense will prevail, but we have to speak sense. We can't just say you stole it. We got to put the facts out there. We have to repeat the facts. We can't just say we're right, and we can't say it's because Jesus is on our side. We have to say we're right because of this, because of that, and because it's better for us as a people. And we have to all agree at some point that being hungry is good. I don't mean starving. I mean hungry. To have a fire in your belly to do something, to accomplish. I have family members whose children are going off and they're getting these lovely jobs working for big companies. And I congratulate them, and I know they're happy, and they like to say what nice names of the companies their kids are working for. Whether it's accounting or aerospace, they're these big companies, and they got a job right out of college. And they're really proud of them. I would rather fucking kill myself than have my kids do that shit. No offense to any of you who do that. I would rather fucking die than have my kids locked in that box. I want them to experience the American freedom of self-determination, not plug in to the Borg and have it all decided for you and have your career and your future and your retirement mapped out. Pass. Not interested. People with spirits like that, they should have stayed back in England. They should have stayed in Europe. They should have stayed in Africa. They should have stayed in Asia. They should have never come to our free shores. We have to instill a fire in the belly to become American. You're born here, so you have legal rights, but you haven't earned it. And you haven't experienced it until you cut your own way through the world. So I challenge everybody to take the road less traveled, to speak the truth, in spite of the fact it will cost you. It will cost you friends. It will cost you family. And it will cost you business. It'll cost you money. It's okay. You will also gain friends for speaking the truth. You will gain friends. You will gain business. You will gain respect. You'll walk a half an inch taller. You'll smile a little bit brighter. You'll laugh a little louder. You breathe a little deeper, and you'll love the country deeply, and you'll be pained by its failures. So I challenge you. I'm not saying go quit your job, tell your boss to fuck off or anything like that. We all have our spot. We've carved a spot, and we're headed on our trajectory. But for my kids, the last thing I want is for them tucked away in some corporate job, getting their soul vacuumed out of them. Pass. Not interested. It's for some people. It's for safe people. So that's okay too. It's just not what I want from me. It's not what I want from my children. I want my children to love this life that is fleeting and gone before they know it. You know, young people, everyone's been acting afraid during COVID. They're all afraid. They're afraid of dying and they haven't even lived. That should be the American discussion. Safety over freedom is flawed thinking. Intellectualism, uncoupled from experience, is ignorance. We have to bring our smart people together with our experienced people. And one thing I know about smart people, they don't like having an idea proved wrong by reality. So inherently, you got to keep intellectuals kind of cordoned off a little bit. But you can't let them run everything. You consult them. You know, Anthony Fauci, he shouldn't be running shit. In my opinion, he's a really smart ding-dong. He's a consultant Why they ever let that guy on TV? He's on the front of fashion magazines and has got a swagger at 83-year-old. I don't know any 83-year-olds ought to be in charge of anything in the U.S. country, in the U.S. government. All right, that's my 2 cents for Monday. Like us, follow us, tell us to fuck off, enjoy the ride, speak your truth, and call out anybody you know in the press to speak the truth. It is more important to speak the truth than to be employed safely. It is more important to speak the truth than have everyone like you. The ancient Greeks, they said, the most important virtue of man is the ability to tell the truth. And to do that, you need courage. And we need people who've got courage. So the most important virtue of man actually is courage, because without courage, you cannot have truth, because truth hurts for people to hear. Aristotle and Socrates and Plato. Dialogues on truth. Virtues of man. Happy Monday, y'all.